Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Sao Paulo for the Brazilian Grand Prix, brought to you by Invictus Racing League and our 16th season penultimate round of the championship. We have a title on the line. We have the possibility for Nick Buxton to go ahead and seal it tonight, and we have a mission for Ghost to keep it alive until the final race. Anything can happen though, and we are ready to get going with an enjoyable evening's racing in front of us. My name is Webbo, here to take you through tonight, as well as joined with stalwart of the channel, JP. Good evening, JP.
Good evening, Webbo. How are you?
Yeah, good. All the better for getting ready for some Invictus racing. I know you've been busy the week. How's the first two races of the week been going?
Quite interesting. Tier 3 we had some mixed weather in the race, but no safety cars came of it, which is always a good thing. And
Yes.
Yesterday we had a fully dry race, and for the first half of it, at least we had 5 cars in one shot for the lead. So Brazil always makes for some very close racing.
Yes.
It's just a very difficult track to overtake on.
Absolutely. So I previewed us slightly here in the build-up, but what are our championship credentials, and how can it get sealed tonight?
So the top 3, obviously Nick Buxton on 133, Ghost on 115, Cameron Searle 106. So Nick Buxton is 18 points clear. Now, if he keeps that gap, he is champion. If he has 17 points or more to Ghost, he will become champion of Tier 1. If Ghost takes 2 points or more out of Nick, then it goes to Portugal.
Right, okay, so Ghost's mission is to take points away from Nick Buxton. He has to finish ahead, which is somewhat of a rarity this season.
Yeah, he's certainly been a force to be reckoned with, this Nick, this season, and we've only really seen him be stopped, I think, once or twice. So it's a tall order for Ghost, but if he wins, then he definitely takes it to the next race.
Okay, well, it's a short track. It's a very common track for the drivers, a track that has been on every iteration of the game, so no excuses for not being fully up to speed with it. It's home of quite frequent DRS trains, which I'm sure was what JP was alluding to. Oh, look at the qualifying session we've got in front of us already. It is teaming it down in Brazil, and remember, the water collects like rivers that run across the track here, so this should make for a very interesting session. I wonder if one of our drivers will give us a full weather update, full weather forecast, or whether they'll leave us in suspense for the start of the race, JP. But this throws a little bit of a spanner in the works.
Yeah, I mean, it very much depends who's actually done a bit of testing in the wet, if they've done any testing in the wet, and subsequently do they have a setup for this case. I mean, you can see that normally people jump out the pits quite quickly because they normally have their dry setup, they load it in, and away you go. But everyone's taking that a little bit extra time here, so maybe just adjust their setups for the wet weather.
Absolutely, and it's a bit of a head scratcher as well. Ghost tells me that it is full wet qualifying and then wet to dry race. Now, that is difficult, isn't it? Because, I mean, they could make the decision that they'll go for a wet setup because it's the bulk of tonight's sessions, but it all depends how much of the race will be dry, and they won't necessarily know with a great deal of accuracy what that will be.
No, I mean, the weather forecast is set to approximate, and it showed not last night, on Monday, the rain looked like it was going to be 45 minutes into the race, which is, I don't know, about lap 30 area.
Yeah.
I mean, just before. It actually came in around lap 10, 11, 12 area, so you've got to take a pinch of salt, and you kind of got to know your figures going into each session, and that will tell you roughly what the story's going to be with the weather.
No, my suspicion would be that if you do double down and go for a wet setup and it ends up being more dry than you planned, it will be okay except for the 2 main straights, where you will then just get completely mugged.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to compromise qualifying to have a better setup in the race. And the race is where you score points at the end of the day, so that's the more important session.
Yeah. We have MDJ about to start a lap. JP, if you'd do the honours for us.
4.3 kilometres of Brazil at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache into turn 1, the Senna S. Obviously a little bit slower in these conditions, second, third gear. Open up turn 2 to get the throttle on through 3. You can see MDJ just having to feather the throttle. He's ground, as we say that, into the wall. So not ideal there. Ennis is the next man on the track, so we'll continue on with him as he comes through the Curva de Sol. Down the Reta Aposta towards the Cida del Lago. Normally in the dry, one of the potential overtaking opportunities with DRS. Fourth gear in. And Ennis just gets a bit sideways through the Cida del Lago through turn 5, which is normally flat in Fidjon. Ferrajora into Laragna, I think it's called, I'm not quite sure, but double apex right-hander. Got to be careful because of the crest, you see plenty of spins there. Into S, and then Pinarino. Just got to be careful, got to be patient with the throttle because they are long hairpins up to Bico to Pato. He's just not got on the grass, and the injuries isn't going to help his cause there. But get it nicely squared up, get the throttle on through Magulio. Again, normally fairly flat in the dry, but definitely not in the wet. The infamous Shunkao. As you head back onto the main drag up to the line. Obviously normally you'd have another dose of DRS here, but not in these conditions. Through the last bit, you're going to want to keep it as tight as you can to the wall, emphasise not to. Normally keep it as tight as you can for the run to the line. There's a 1:16.8 by Ryan, who takes provisional pole from now after only 2 times set.
And then totals the car and it retires immediately. Eero Enos manages to set 1 lap and then done. So there will be no better race pace going on from him. Nick Jewston straight into pole position on a 1:16.281 from Ryan and Ricky Maru. Let's have a look at Ghost then, because it is about pretty much Nick Jewston versus Ghost, and we'll keep an eye also, of course, on Cameron Searle, who has a mathematical opportunity here for the championship. A wet race, a wet part of qualifying could see one of our championship contenders out of contention by obviously a small mistake. And ARL has got in touch already as we just wait for Ghost to cross the line. Ghost goes fourth only, 1:16.617, and that is 0.7 of a second away from the provisional pole. Merckx has taken the provisional pole, 15.6 from Clarkson at 15.9, and Speed Queen in ahead of the main championship leader on a 16.0 JP. It's maybe just an indication that the track is improving over the course of the session so far.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it is still raining out there. I mean, it could just be a sign that everyone's trying to get a bank lap in to begin with, because it's very easy to slide wide and take a lap invalidation around Brazil in the wet, because the car is normally a little bit twitchy around here. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is kind of everyone's sort of banker period, and as of now they're going to start going at it fully. The nice thing with the intermediates is you can put more fuel in the car and go consecutive laps as well, so we don't really know what sort of fuel figures everyone's working to.
We just see that from ARL, who said he's not looking forward to tonight. It's an awful track. He's had 0 practice, and he's done a back-to-back lap, and he's gone up to 8th. Will Cass says he's looking forward to seeing how Merckx bins it this week. Well, I think Merckx did pretty well last week, no?
Last week he did. I mean, he might be referring to RP though, because I know Merckx also does RP
okay.
on Thursdays nowadays, so could be referring to a race in that.
And Ennis says he wants to kill himself. Well, he did a good job. He made an attempt at killing himself on track, but it didn't quite do the trick, it seems. He's able to type still. Luke Bailey goes at 1:20.4. MDJ still somewhat behind at the moment. Let's see if he can do any better. JP, sorry.
And it did kill the car, so it's similar. But Nick Jewston on his next lap is just going to come into the pit. The biggest problem here is that in order for this to work, you have to have a cool-down lap to regen your battery and have full battery available to you, because it is quite a key element around this circuit with the long straight on the main straight and the one down to the Cida del Lago. and having it out of the hairpins is quite crucial as well, because it gets you up the gears and with that extra little bit of acceleration. So Jimmy Clarkson is going on to another lap. The 159 for him. We haven't seen him for a few races, but we know he is pretty good.
He is. Ghost goes third, a 16.009, as MDJ also went up in the order on a 16.939. Ghost didn't appear to be using a great deal of ERS to get that out, and I wonder if actually the opportunity to spend that ERS is significantly reduced thanks to the low grip of the session. Now the sun is shining, JP. Does that mean that we should be in a drying situation? I know the rain is still falling, but will the times effectively start to drop thanks to that sun being out and the temperatures building?
Not necessarily, because it depends on how the water stays on the track, and we had this sort of situation on Monday in the race, and it didn't really get any better during the race when we had it. So if the sun's out, I mean, if the rain lightens up a little bit or stops, then yeah, we could start to see some small improvement. But whilst the rain's still coming down, I think the track is kind of in a stable sort of period.
But it takes a fair old while to dry here. Speed Queen is a tenth of a second up. Jeremy Clarkson goes on the provisional pole, claims it on a 15.516 with 9.5 minutes to run in qualifying. Speed Queen didn't maximise that final sector, unfortunately, so has slipped back again. Luke Bailey's done a great lap. Has got a 16.4 up to P6 as well. I think he's on a bit of a cool-down lap or recharge lap at the moment. Let's check in with Merckx, who has been very quick. He's just started his next lap, and I'll ride with him, JP, if you're busy with someone else. But Merckx has managed to invalidate that lap, so let's not bother with that idea.
I'm just having a look at Cameron Searle. He's up by 1 second at the moment, so he's on for a 15.6. If he gets through Juncal nicely, he actually does a little twitch on the left hand foot, but nothing too major. Up towards the line then, you're going to see him probably hug the wall a little bit. Yeah. Just like 15.342 for provisional pole position.
Very, very handy indeed. Cameron Searle doing a great job on that one. Deep into his intermediate tyre set. So a 0.2 of a second cushion for Cameron Searle against Jeremy Clarkson. Merckx is another tenth further back, and Ghost is a few more tenths than that, down into the 16.009 range for Ghost. Is he actually on a lap at the moment? He is, but he's slower. So let's ride with Nick Jewston, who's just started his flyer, and he's 0.3 of a second faster than he's been before on this session session tonight. So heading into the SE corner, Pinarina. Coming out of that in fourth gear. Such is the loss of grip at the moment, JP.
Yeah, and sometimes you use fourth in the dry round there as well, if you want to clamp the throttle down. In the Julio, Juncal, he's 0.8 quicker at the moment, so he's a bit of a twitch out with Juncal and a bit of wheel spin. That's not going to help his momentum up the hill. He's not quite quick enough to match Cameron at the moment. Up to the line, seeing hug the line, hug the wall. And a 15.410, I think that exit of Juncal cost him there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a lot of wheel spin.
But he'd be pleased, I think, to be up and away from as much trouble as possible. Up on the front row is a good place to be. It's not great for your entry into the first corner, but it's usually pretty comfortable away from the start. So a championship contender starting in the midfield is never going to feel very comfortable.
No, it's never going to be comfortable, but obviously these drivers are good enough, they can deal with it, and I hope they trust each other to race fairly cleanly. And there's Martin across the line with a 17.1 to go in 11th. And just to show you just how much slower these guys are at the moment, last season in PlayStation F1, Ghost set pole position with a 109.763, so we're just under 6 seconds slower than last season's pole time in the Inter condition. However, I do believe that, the pole time actually, so I wasn't aware, that was the fastest lap by Ghost in the race, which is still quite impressive actually. The pole time was up by Speed Queen actually last season in Brazil with a 118.514. Now that says to me that was done in complete
very wet,
full wet tyres. So it seems like top tier doesn't seem to get the luck round Brazil with weather in qualifying.
IRL is a 0.25 of a second up on his own time here. He may get up a 2 or 3 positions as a result. He can continue on into the 3rd sector, and it looked a good exit from Yunsao and Magulio over the line for ARL up to 7th place. And if he's not done any kind of practice, I would imagine he'd be pretty happy with that. We've got Jeremy Clarkson on a flyer right now. Let's ride with him. And that's the 2nd time I've gone to somebody's trip through the Estor Centre, and they've managed to invalidate across the middle. Easily done.
Easily done. Obviously, you're trying to open that corner up as much as you can to get the drive, get the throttle on early. It doesn't take a lot just to exceed the inner white lines. But it's good for Barry that he is, obviously he's got his lap in at a 15.5, and you can see the drivers now starting to have a little bit more risk to find those extra few tenths.
And the dry line is slightly better than it was. Merckx is on a lap at the moment. He was up by 69 thousandths in the 1st sector, so we will get his 2nd sector. It's a long 2nd sector here really, and a very short 3rd sector, so not much you can do if you're not already up on by the 2nd sector timing beam. We go through Magulio with Merckx and head towards that very laser point, and he's half a second faster than he has been before. That puts him well within range here of potential pole position. So it could be that things have improved either for the track or for Merckx with his setup or driving. And we go heading towards the line, and for Merckx it's new pole position at 1:15.119. Tremendous lap from him.
I do wonder if it's a combination of things here. When obviously Cameron Sorrell is only just coming up now, obviously fresh set of boots and potentially less fuel on board, all factors that can help. And I think that the track is starting to just get slightly better. It doesn't look much better than before, but I wonder if it is just that, as you say, is that dry, let's say, the racing line.
I'm seeing a few more tyre tracks on the track anyway. Speed Queen gets a purple final sector and goes up to 5th on a 15.659. So there's a lot of movement at this point. Just under 3.5 minutes to run. Who's next? Shall we check in with Brian? Perhaps is heading towards the line. Can he better his position? Only by 1 place up to P8. Deposes ARL back down to P9 again. Reshka has managed a 10th position. And we will talk a little bit more about the Constructors' Championship, but to keep things close, we need Reshka to be scoring. We need a double points finish for McLaren versus only the 1 Alfa Romeo in the field to try and make sure that this goes down to the wire as well in the Constructors. Ricky Maru surprises me at the moment, being down there in last place, actually circulating at the moment in 13th.
It depends whether he's gone for a drier setup compared to the rest, though. If he feels that the race is going to be more dry than wet, he may have gone that way.
Right.
Try and take advantage. And Richie's back into the pits, which is a bit odd. But the other thing as well that I have noted, the Cameron Sorrell has come back out on an old set of intermediate tyres, and I wonder if this is Cameron saving 1 or 2 sets for the race.
Right. Could well be. Nick has only done the 1 flyer on each set, so that is interesting. Reshka goes a little bit quicker in the 1st sector. Good evening to Pampern and to Daryl, who join us. Anyone else who wants to shout out, do drop us a line. Tell us who you're here to enjoy, who you're supporting, whether you're just here to giggle at the prospect of Tier 1 having to deal with these kind of conditions. We've got a fully wet qualifying, at least it's intermediate tyres. It's certainly consistently raining throughout qualifying is what I mean, and we have a wet to dry race prospect, although we're not entirely clear and haven't had the exact forecast, not that the forecast would even be exact on the point in the race at which it will go from that wet to dry point. Merckx holds the fastest time with just about 1 minute 20 to go before the checkered flag. From Cameron Sorrell, Nick Jewston, Clarkson, Speed Queen and Ghost, and it's Ghost versus Nick Jewston in the championship, with a chance for Cameron Sorrell to do something about it as well. Reshka stays 10th, doesn't improve. Who among our fastest guys are currently circulating? We've got Clarkson on track at the moment. Hi to Rents, he's only here for 2 minutes. Okay, Brent, well, make it a good 2 minutes, won't you? Give us the full benefit of all of your wisdom and prediction powers in those 2 minutes. That'd be great. And Atser says hello, and hello to you indeed. Luke Bailey's retired from the session. That might just be he's in the pits, isn't he? So nothing dramatic. Ennis set a time and then wiped out the car in the Estel Senna. Jeremy Clarkson going slowly at the moment. Anybody actually
MDJ
on a
up
lap?
to 8 with a 1:16.0.
Excellent.
Now he's also got a job to do, because it's not just McLaren that are fighting in these constructors. It is AlphaTauri, McLaren and Alfa Romeo, all separated by 2 points.
I'll tell you what, just about to cross the line, JP, we've got Ghost, Nick Jewston and Jeremy Clarkson, one after the other, to start their flying laps with just a couple of seconds left on the clock. The checkered flag will fall now, and it's been these three against each other on the track, and they'll be able to see each other as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So Jeremy Clarkson, not in any form of title fight, but he can certainly play a big role in it.
He's quick tonight as well as Clarkson. Both the main championship contenders are slower than their first times going through here. Ghost will not do any better. He spins out. Jeremy Clarkson spins out too. And it's all down to Nick Jewston if he can get himself back on that front row. It's Merck from Cameron Searle at the moment, but it looks like it's getting worse, JP, at the moment.
I don't think it's necessarily getting worse. I think these guys are now, we're just pushing the boundaries, because over Laurent Jr., I would say Ferragura Part 2 because it's easier. Over that crest, you could just see Nick Jewston really trying to put more throttle down than he has done before, and that lights the rears up. Obviously Clarkson, all of them just trying to get more throttle on the car, and naturally, obviously, the more you push it, the more chance you have of losing the back end and spinning.
Absolutely.
But this is good. This is good testing for the race, on the basis that we are expecting some form of wet weather.
Absolutely. Well, everybody coming into the pits now. There will be no faster time set. Nick Jewston will have to get the job done from third on the grid, and Ghost will have to try and overtake him and take those points away that we heard JP describe earlier on. We've got Darryl saying he's just here to watch to see who spins more times than he does. Atsa is giving as good as he gets in that front, and Rents gives us a race worth of comments in those 2 minutes. So very strong game from Rents, and thanks to you. So we will settle down and get ready for the race to come. And JP, once we've got the times up on the board, I'm sure you'll take us through our provisional grid. But the marshals haven't put any kind of hats or umbrellas up. Anyway, here we go. It's time for the grid for our penultimate race of the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait for it all to load up, and it's going to be an interesting grid, because it is Merck who lines up on pole position, a 1:15.119 to take that pole position. Cameron Searle will line up alongside him, but there's potential that he's got an extra set of fresh tyres compared to everyone else. Nick Jewston and Jeremy Clarkson line up on row 2. Row 3 is Speed Queen and Ghost. Row 4 is Luke Bailey, MDJ. Row 5, ARL, Ryan. Row 6 is Reshka and SFR Martin. And the final row 7 is Ricky Maru and ERO Ennis.
Thank you very much. Ricky Maru is already making apologies to Gunther, who I think is slinking off to have a chat with Gene. So we'll have to just imagine what Gunther is saying from that qualifying performance so far from the Haas team. Doesn't sound like Ricky Maru has a particularly good excuse ready to go for it, to provide, but so it may not be that he's ready. But are we on? Oh, this is full wet, no?
Yeah, I mean, I can see if you look in the Red Bull garage, you can see wet tyres there in the garage.
Yeah.
So that to me is definitely the sign that it is going to be a full wet tyre start, and it could mean that we're going to go through the range of tyres tonight. If we're expecting the end to be dry, we could end up having to go from wet to inters to the slicks at the end.
Well, just to play devil's advocate with that prediction, AJ, ARL is saying full wets, and it's going to be fully wet all the way to the end. So that's what he says. And Atsa says Ricky hates a wet track. So I don't know if that's inside information from ATSA or just a just a statement of the way things are right now. We'll be diving straight into the race, of course, with no formation lap for the drivers, so no chance here, JP, to have a feel around on these current conditions, and this is approaching biblical.
Yeah, this is going to be tricky, and I think it's quite possibly the first time this season in Tier 1 we're going to be using the wet tyres. It's not the first time this season that the wet tyres are going to be used.
Yeah.
RP have used them before. Tier 3 have also had them as well. But I think this might be the first time Tier 1 has used them this year. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, for me, the wet is a massive equaliser, and it actually, especially in this type of league, it really does show you the skill level of the drivers. Because you have to be able to drive really well to get the best of the car in these conditions.
And it's the reactions as well. It's being able to drive around unpredictability. So it is, there's one thing is driving in perfect condition, time trial times and qualifying, and another thing is race craft and race control, and then quite another thing is being able to dance on the limit of adhesion in completely unpracticed conditions, and really drivers do very little by way of wet race simulation and practice. This is really a voyage into the unknown. Imagine just basically taking all downforce off in the fast corners. That's effectively what you're trying to deal with here. And then imagine being able to someone sort of trying to push the rear end round as you go into the slow stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect most of the drivers have probably made a compromise on their setups to allow for it to be mixed conditions. Obviously, it probably won't be a full wet setup, but it won't be fully dry. So it's certainly going to be interesting with 10 seconds left on the grid before the drivers get very, very wet.
Some good comments coming in, and Pampen probably best among them, calling for a red flag immediately. Red flag, restart. So this would be red flag conditions, I fancy. I wonder how they're going to code that. Well, we're ready to get underway already. The 5 lights are on, and it's time for the Brazilian Grand Prix, and it's go from the start. Several drivers sort of teasing the car forward with counter steer, but it's Merck straight into the lead. Nick Joosten trying to hang it around the outside of Cameron Searle, who is going for this championship. That could be a risky position to put himself, and he decides to just hesitate at the apex and try and challenge into the next few corners. Well, it looks like so far everybody being pretty well behaved, JP. Everyone's away from the start pretty well.
Yeah, and two very interesting choices. Jeremy Clarkson and Ricky Maru have chosen to start on the intermediate tyres. So it's a very bold call from those two, but if it works out, they are faster than the wets.
Absolutely. So main championship contender, championship leader here, Nick Joosten in third position. He is 18 points ahead of Ghost. He needs to basically score a point if Ghost doesn't, well, he doesn't even need to score a point if Ghost doesn't win, but Ghost needs to take points away from him and will be feeling a little bit desperate. Although I wonder, given how we've spoken to Ghost previously in this championship, whether he's already made up his mind that it's not going to happen for him, and he's actually going to be defending that second position from Cameron Searle. Let's see what happens as Nick Joosten looks to have a good slipstream, but is not seemingly in a particularly bullish mood, and who would blame him as he's in third position in the race at the moment. Fastest lap from the lead car, of course, from Merckx, who's not dealing with any lack of visibility in front. They are dealing with a lot more spray than you see on your screen right now as Nick Joosten comes out of the Curva do Sol, but has got quite a poor amount of top speed relative to Cameron Searle in front. Reshka is moving through the field, moving past Martin, but 1, 2, 3 is Merckx, Cameron Searle and Nick Joosten, and then further back Jeremy Clarkson, Speed Queen and Ghost just getting themselves comfortable. Clarkson not struggling on these inters at the moment, JP, it seems.
No, he's coping quite well in these conditions, which is good to see, and it gives him hope actually that if conditions do start to improve, he's not going to have to pit straight away. So it could, if he can stick with them, it could be a bit of a blinding call.
Yeah, buys him a little bit of flexibility if he can, as you say, stick with it. The rain is falling heavily, obviously, but the amount of cars running is going to dry the racing line up a little bit. And the first look of a tiny little twitch approaching and going through the apex of Yun Sao that time from Jeremy Clarkson.
Oh, MDJ round into the wall, front left wheel off, and that is the end of MDJ's race. And we have a virtual safety car for the incident, just coming through the flick left of turn 14. He was right behind Ghost, and the back end broke away from him.
Everybody slows down as a result. So is this a complete wreck and retirement? Yes, indeed it is. It's a DNF for MDJ. And what are the drivers going to be feeling on board here, JP? Will they start to feel the temperatures drop?
It's a bit of a weird one, because obviously the wet tyres work in colder conditions because they are effectively softer than the soft tyres. Obviously you still have to have the temperature window, but I don't think that these won't drop off at the same rate as the slicks will. I think that they'll stay fairly well in their window. They might have to do a slight bit of warm up when we go back to green flag, but it's just a question now of who plays crafty with this virtual safety car and gets going the quickest, and if anyone's caught napping as we go back to green.
We do go back to green flag racing, and the cars have condensed somewhat, which is not really the intention of a VSC, just the way that the deltas work out. Nick Houston is still pretty close here. I think Ghost has a very difficult job in front of him to try and pass Bee Queen here and get himself moving forward. Clarkson will have decent speed, but Nick Houston oversteps the line slightly there and will just have his heart in his mouth for a second. An incident, JP, at Yun Sao and just following Yun Sao can have devastating consequences for your race.
Yeah, we kind of saw that with MDJ through 14, and it's never one that you want to be going off on. But without DRS, it's still, I think it's more possible to overtake through the corners, but obviously you do run that risk because there is slightly less grip.
Yeah. But
the AlphaTauris now, obviously just down to Cameron, so between Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri it's a fair 1v1 fight. McLaren still have that advantage, but you feel Ghost does need to start making some moves and try and get up to the back of Nick Houston. He
does. He needs to move forward, but he needs to do so as carefully as possible as well. They are targeting, of course, the Constructors' Championship. He'd love to do the double. He won the Constructors last season with Reshka as well. And Nick Houston starting to look a little bit aggressive, moving around in the mirrors and trying to play with different racing lines. He just stepped off about half a car's width off the racing line and found himself unable to grip down into the corner as he would usually expect. He's trying to gain on the way out of Yun Sao to be in with a shout here, but it is a very brave move to try and dive down the inside off the racing line. You're really trying to put the driver in front, JP, off and make them defend so that you can use that racing line yourself.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird concept using the racing line in the wet. Normally you'd wider lines are sometimes better in the wet, but game doesn't really simulate that to the same extent as what real life is, which is a bit of a shame, because where Nick Houston was, obviously he's trying to lay the power down earlier but slightly offline, and it's because the game doesn't quite simulate that correctly. It just causes you slightly more problems than you would normally have. But he's still on the back of Cameron, and Jeremy's still hovering around a second behind at the moment on the intermediates. Yeah,
and Merckx is getting away. He's 2 seconds in the lead. So basically, it's anyone's guess now whether it's going to be Nick versus Cameron, or it's going to be Ghost versus Speed Queen, who makes the first move. Nick goes down the inside of Yun Sao, and that was a very nice move, but surely he's going to be vulnerable on the way into the next corner, because down into curve 1 he's certainly not had the top speed, and you can see straight away Cameron Searle with the top speed advantage gets on the racing line, gets ahead and retakes that position masterfully from Cameron. No panic on in the car, and now suddenly Jeremy Clarkson is entering the mix.
Yeah, this rain's eased off quite a lot compared to the start of this race, so I think these intermediates are going to start to come into their own as this rain eases off. And Jeremy Clarkson going to look to the inside. Nick Houston can't quite make the move though. But if this is critical for Cameron to defend, still side by side between the Aston and the
they were interlocking wheels for a second there, going through the Descida de Lago second part, and Jeremy Clarkson muscles his way through. JP, that was pretty robust.
Yeah, and I think he has a big slide out of S into Pinarino. But I wonder, is this now where the intermediates are now going to start coming to their own? Because, like I say, the rain has eased quite considerably, and I don't think it will be long before these intermediates are pretty tired to be on.
Mini slide there from Nick Jewston as well, and actually Speed Queen's getting away from Ghost at this stage, so it's all about the battle for this second position at the moment. If I can just get a decent camera angle, please. Race control, thank you very much. Oh, into the pits comes Nick Jewston. He's decided that's every indication he needed, and as you say, Cameron in too, but Ghost and Nick Jewston have stayed out.
But so Cameron and Nick Jewston into the pits.
No,
this
Ghost
will be
has gone in.
Intermediates.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are going to be coming in, and I tell you what, this has been one hell of a call from Jeremy Clarkson and Ricky Maru.
Yeah,
they're going to gain massively from this now. Going to be interesting, actually. I'm going to try and work out the...
I'm looking at the speed difference, and maybe every mini sector Clarkson can gain maximum a tenth over a mini sector on Merck. Now, is Merck going to be awake to the fact that everyone else is pitted and be watching that gap? I think it's dropping sufficiently quickly enough, JP, for Merck to notice and consider that pit stop. But there's a problem about being so far away in the lead that you may not actually realise how quick the intermediate runners are going.
I think you'll see the gap to Jeremy Clarkson coming down and know it's the right time. It's about 20 seconds, I think, for a pit stop. So Jeremy Clarkson's gained 21 seconds here over Cameron. The question is, I think the intermediates, everyone on the intermediates will have to pit against Merck. Does come in the pits. Jeremy Clarkson will lead this race. He took a gamble, and he's taken fastest lap so far. He took a big gamble on those intermediates, and it's really paying off here.
Absolutely, and that's spread the field out quite considerably. We've got a problem.
Yeah, Martin in the wall just before 15, the last little kink. He's lost his front wing. Luckily, he's now got 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane.
I was going to say, I have commentated over a race here in the rain where every single person going into the pits got a 5-second penalty because they just weren't prepared to stop in time. Ennis is retired from the session as well. Where is that? In the pits?
In the pit.
Okay, good job from Ennis. Then he's gone into the pits, and there, just looking at the gap to leader, you can see exactly. Born witness exactly what JP was saying. Merck, of course, was 3 seconds in front of Jeremy Clarkson when he pitted, but Speed Queen and ARL have yet to pit. Ricky Maru didn't need to, because he was brave enough to start on the Inters too and taking a big chance, because ARL did say in the chat that what he was getting from the forecast was wet till the end, and it will be wet tyres till the end of the race as well. So it's Jeremy Clarkson leading away, and he's gapping the field at the moment because of course his intermediates are well up to temperature, JP.
They are. The thing is, Cameron Sorrell has taken about 4 seconds out of Jeremy Clarkson's lead over him at the moment.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, they are on fresher inters, and this is where the slight problem comes for Jeremy Clarkson here. Is I would potentially think, I don't quite know how long these inters are going to be able to last for. I mean, they should last for a pretty long time. Possibly, I think the people who have just pitted are probably okay to do the rest of the race, but obviously Jeremy Clarkson tyres being 7 laps older, they're going to be a little bit more horrible to drive come the end of this race.
It looks like Speed Queen might be trying to hang this one out until the switch to dries, possibly. She's actually running on the wet side of the track frequently to try and cool the tyres, so they're clearly overheating for her. Ryan is hounding the back of Reshka, who is hanging on to the final points bank position, which is not enough for McLaren here, really. 8th and 10th is not going to do it, especially when we expect Nick Juice to be able to move forward later in the race, although his gap to Cameron Searle is out to 1.7 seconds. Tell you what, Merckx is looking quick as well on the back of Ricky Maru, and that will be an indicator for us, JP, just how quick a new set of inters are against those inters that have started the race.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of estimate about 2% wear per lap for the intermediates. It might be different for the other drivers. So Jeremy Clarkson's tyres, you're already looking at 18% wear on those as we speak now. So
Cameron Searle goes back. He's driving very quick at the moment, Cameron Searle. I know you mentioned his move forward, but Merckx and Ricky Maru have caught ARL, who's on the wet tyres, so it's about to get very busy heading down towards Decido del Lago. I think ARL was, well, he's decided to defend. I thought he was actually just going to let them go because they're on such different tyre compounds. And Merckx, I think, touches the back of Ricky Maru. ARL is being overtaken very easily through the corners here. Defends to the inside of Ferradura and into La Harina. All three cars somehow stay on track. That was very hairy for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, into Ferradura side by side, not really what you're looking for. Cameron Searle now makes his way past the Ferrari. I think the biggest problem here for Speed Queen is I don't think this track is going to dry quick enough to go from wet to dry tyre. It is still raining out there. Jeremy Clarkson now goes for the fast lap of the race, 1:17.4. Maybe showing that he's been looking after those tyres as Merckx now gets past Ricky Maru.
He does, just clean drives all the way around the outside of him. He had so much overspeed and grip that he managed to hang it around the outside and still have better traction coming out once he claimed that racing line. He was faster at the apex, even though he didn't even touch the apex. So that's how to pass in the wet with a tyre advantage. Merckx goes quick. Luke Bailey sets the fastest lap on a 1:17.4 right now, and Speed Queen is second, but only 6.9 seconds ahead of Merckx, who is going quickly with dragging Cameron Searle along with him. I'll tell you what though, Nick Jewston and Ghost are not moving forward at the same kind of rate as Cameron Searle and Merckx have done so far. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting, but then Nick Jewston, he doesn't have to win this race to win the title, and he only has to, from my calculations, he only has to finish 5th, and it pretty much negates whatever Cameron Searle does.
Yes.
So...
Oh, hello. Ghost has managed to pass ARL as well. Still on the wet tyres. ARL doing the long run here on the wet tyres, same as Speed Queen. The only two drivers hanging on to those wet tyres, but it looks like it's not going to produce a result at the moment. Of course, a safety car could make that one work for them, but it needs to dry out first, really. And the quicker it dries out, the worse they're going to be on those wet tyres. It's a vicious circle they're in at the moment. Merckx, fastest lap, 16.3, and the track is improving, JP, lap by lap.
Yes, it's slowly getting better, and I think we might see some dry running come the end of this race. So it's going to be interesting, and that's, if we do get dry running, that's where this race may be decided. Is what compound of tyre everyone thinks they can get away with to the end of the race, because if it goes to dry, you definitely want to be picking a tyre that will go to the end of the race.
Yes, absolutely. And one question I've got for you is not something I've really looked into a lot, but I know that our weather prediction is set to approximate. Does that mean that every driver gets the same approximate weather prediction, or is there actually going to be a difference between those weather forecasts across the drivers?
No, whenever, because obviously in Tier 3s, Merckx gets past Speed Queen now. That's Eugene out. And Cameron Searle's not really far away from it either. In Tier 3, me and my teammate and a couple of others that we race with, we pretty much have the same forecast. So everyone gets the same approximate forecast.
Right.
It's just how every driver interprets that. To then decide their thing, a bit like Jeremy Clarkson's interpreted that the actual full wet weather side of things won't last too long, so using the Inters to start with was the best option for him.
Exactly.
Definitely trying to cool those tyres down right now.
Yeah, and Nick Jewston is coming up behind Ricky Maru, but not sending it, not chucking the car into the corner. To try and claim it. He will know that everybody knows that there's a target on his back and that he has to drive defensively. It's a really intriguing thing about being a potential champion, JP, is the fact that towards the end of the season, towards the end of that target, unless you get it done really early, you are playing some funny psychological games with the rest of the grid. He goes for the move down the inside, not really sort of a definite move, but just more to do with the fact that Ricky Maru was offline. He tries to go around the outside, and that is very, very dangerous place to be, especially as Ricky Maru across the grass slightly through Yonsal, but it worked out for Nick Jewston, and he's on the tail of Speed Queen with a better grip on the way out of the corner, and he could get two in one sector. Wow, Ricky Maru is looking very, very leery.
Yeah, he went a bit wide and caught the edge of the circuit, which meant he just lost the rear. I mean, that was very well saved, and not to plant into the barrier is very good effort here. As Nick Jewston gets better grip out of the centre S through Curva de Sol, although it's not very sunny at the moment. He goes up into 4th place, and Ghost has joined this little battle here as Ricky Maru gets through Speed Queen at the Cedar de Lago.
Absolutely, Ghost is on the back now and has caught. So Speed Queen still has to make a pit stop. She won't be able to run wet tyres to the end, not even Speed Queen. We'll get this to the end, and there may have been the hint of contact, but certainly Speed Queen spins to the inside of La Coruña, excuse me, and heading down into SA now. Is that, did you get a better view of that, JP, or not?
I think I was actually looking at Reshka and Ryan at the time, because they're actually having a bit of a battle of their own. But yeah, I mean, I did look back on the stream, and it was very tight between those two. And 2 wide through Ferrajora, I mean, normally something goes wrong, and it did. I mean, sometimes it goes right, but on this occasion, unfortunately, Speed Queen spun.
Yeah.
But you do sometimes wonder what percentage of that spin was caused by the tyres themselves.
Absolutely, Ghost is hot on the heels of Ricky Maru and trying to move forward as well. Nick Jewston is 5 seconds away from outside shot at the title, Cameron Searle, but Jeremy Clarkson leads this race by about 17 seconds, and that hasn't changed drastically in the last few laps. Ricky Maru is all over the road, JP. He's very, very unpredictable and struggling, I think, significantly to control this car. That has got to be a nightmare for anybody trying to make the overtake.
It is. Oh, a big slide over the crest as we head now into Essa. Yeah, I mean, the tyres, these intermediates, they do feel worse and worse the longer you have them on. Even though their wear rate is quite good, their performance does drop. And I'm starting to wonder, there's no rain in the air anymore, Webbo.
Yeah.
So this circuit should be drying now, and we can see that in the fastest lap times coming down.
Yeah.
So now the question is, who's going to be the first to blink onto slick tyres?
And normally you would expect that from someone further back in the grid with the least to lose, as Ghost does battle here with Ricky Maru, who this time makes his intentions fairly clear and sticks it on the inside of the pit straight. Ghost will go the long way around the outside, gives him about 2 cars width at the corner and gets through very nicely. If you're just joining us, welcome to Malk, welcome to Burmeister, who's joining us to watch the racing tonight. The reason Jeremy Clarkson is so far ahead is because he decided to start this torrentially wet race on intermediates, and he has been the bravest alongside with Ricky Maru starting on those intermediate tyres. And obviously Ricky Maru's really struggling now. This could work out beautifully as everybody else had to pit for those inters.
Taken a flyer. None other than ARL has decided it's time for medium tyres. Normally people wait for the DRS to become enabled, because that is a very good indication of a turning point.
Yep.
ARL does have to be very careful coming out of this pit lane, because obviously no cars have really been on it as such in the last 8 laps. So that can be pretty treacherous, but...
Oh, I'm just watching Reshka try and get the move done on Speed Queen. Goes to the outside, manages to get the car to the inside of the next corner, and I think Speed Queen might be headed into the pits very shortly as well. Looks like ARL. Let's join him on board and see how that Ferrari is handling on the medium tyres. He had to go mediums because he's got to do about 19 laps on these tyres. There's no way he was going to get softs through to the end. As much as softs would be a preferred car. Now, to your right, JP, is ARL in Ghosted? I do hope that's not a tactical decision.
No, that's because he's being lapped by Jeremy Clarkson.
Ah, perfect. Okay.
So he should go solid. Hopefully.
There we go.
Yes, there we go.
I was
Tickling
hoping
in for
that
medium
he wasn't running a tactical ghosting there, but trying to get those lap times in now. Let's see. He doesn't look particularly leery at the moment, so we'll just stick with him as he gets those tyres up to temperature, and he will be the guinea pig that everybody else tries. Now he's weaving, JP, but he's weaving onto the wettest parts of the track. I don't think that's going to do a great deal of favours in terms of tyre warming.
No, but the track is looking drier and drier, so I can't really see much standing water anywhere. So,
oh wow, really playing with the steering wheel, and he's immediately faster by half a second. So JP, this looks like a good decision from ARL. He's got a big gaps to find in front, but of course he can save that pit stop now and try and make hay while the sun literally shines on the circuit and the track is drying out.
Yeah, he needs to put in a good laps here, because the problem for ARL is if a safety car were to come out now, he's in a lot of trouble, because he would not get his lap back at this point.
Hard tyres on Ryan.
Yeah.
I
think Ryan's going on the basis that the mediums won't last to the end of the race, but he's going to struggle with warm-up on those hard tyres in the current conditions.
Those hard tyres on a cold green track surface, green meaning washed of rubber, he will really struggle. So that's going to be fascinating. So are we really genuinely thinking that the mediums won't last this sort of half distance here?
Jeremy Clarkson in, I think, and hard tyres for the leader. So he wants to be able to push to the end of this race.
This is fascinating, seeing drivers go for those hards.
It is a long time. Mediums for Merckx, so he thinks the mediums will last. Cameron Searle, he's going to go onto a set of medium tyres. Nick Jewston, what's it going to be for him? It's medium tyres for him. It's medium tyres for Ghost. So once again, Jeremy Clarkson is the one at the front who's rolling the dice once again, and hoping basically that the mediums fall off a cliff from the end of this race.
Yeah, he's got a good lead though. He's got a lead that he can play with. His lead is not 6.2 seconds over Ricky Maru. It's more like 14, 15 seconds over Merckx here, having pitted. So he's got that little bit of wiggle room, JP, to afford to be slow for a few laps to get those hards up, with the guarantee of being able to get those tyres to the end.
It does. The question is though, just how quick these mediums are going to be for Merckx. But again, Merckx is going to have to push, which will wear the tyres out. Just a quick update though, constructors wise, as of lap 18, so a lap ago, the AlphaTauri team were on 152, McLaren 149, and Alfa Romeo 148. So AlphaTauri, as of lap 18, were increasing their lead in the constructors.
Fantastic info. And Ricky Maru pits. I imagine Martin's about to pit. I must just call out and props to the drivers here for having survived that wet period. Only Ennis and MDJ have retired, and that is a pretty impressive rate of attrition through that torrential period of rain. Ennis actually pitted, actually retired from pits as well. So MDJ, the only significant accident in that downpour, and that is a testament to these drivers. There's only one penalty on the track as well.
Yeah, which is ARL. But as you say, that one retirement, as Luke Bailey decides he wants to join in on the penalty fun, and he picks up 3 seconds himself. But as you say, MDJ, it's a big loss for the AlphaTauri team, because at the moment, obviously Cameron in third. Yeah. They would have wanted MDJ to still be in this race, because whilst Cameron is extending the lead for AlphaTauri, they could have had more points from MDJ, but unfortunately it's not the way it's worked out. In 12.9 the gap, Merckx Jeremy Clarkson. Now Jeremy Clarkson's just at the fast lap, but I'm expecting Merckx to take that in about 5 seconds time.
Let's join him on board then and see. Yeah, he's 3.1 seconds faster than he's been before. A 1:11.4 is a big gain for him. So that gap now down to 13 seconds from about 17 prior to the pit stops. Ghost gets the fastest lap suddenly, a 1:11.3. So he's unlocking a bit of pace right now. Nick Jewston didn't register any kind of fastest lap at that point, so I wonder if it's the pressure or if it's just the state of the track that isn't suiting Nick Jewston. But it's an unusual race for Nick Jewston, finding himself outside of the podium here.
It is, yeah, but at the same time, Ryan picks up 3 seconds. At the same time, you've got to think like champions do. Obviously, DRS open for Speed Queen as she tries to chase down Reshka. Yeah, you have to think championship here. Yeah. It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to win this race. He doesn't even have to finish on the podium in this race. He just has to finish ahead of Ghost and in the top 5. And he's got this wrapped up. So he has to be smart about it.
Well, that's impressive, that's exactly JP. Jeremy Clarkson's just set the fastest lap on hard tyres. Faster than, well, Merck's just taken it, but Jeremy Clarkson is not hanging around here, only about 0.6 of a second down on Merck's most recent fastest lap, and faster than anybody else on the medium tyres on the previous lap as well. So Clarkson has been very, very impressive around this track tonight.
Yeah, incredibly impressive on the hard compound. I mean, for all we know, he could have been running a fully dry setup in this,
and handling it on inters in that downpour as well. So he has been a revelation tonight. I think he would be very, very pleased with tonight's work if he can just bring it home. We've got 14 laps to go in this race. It feels like it's taken a long time to get to this point, JP. I think just running those slower wet laps has meant that normally the Brazilian Grand Prix flies by.
Yeah, I mean, we were running 118s area at the start of this race. I mean, a good 8-9 seconds slower at the start of this race. So it has felt like it's dragged on, but the biggest problem now is obviously we've got these massive gaps. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jeremy Clarkson completely deserves this gap because of his gamble. But obviously that wet to dry has caused a small bit of gappage.
Another fastest lap from Ghost, who is coming up on that championship leader, who is trying to take his title away from him, from Ghost, who is the season 15 champion and has not been able to finish ahead of Nick Jewston at any point this season. I don't believe. Actually, when Nick Jewston has turned up and finished the race, he's finished ahead of Ghost as far as my memory serves. I know I've missed a few races. ARL has left the session, so that might just be a temporary disconnection, but Ghost is right on the edge, and Daryl says the safety car would be so unlucky for Jeremy right now. He deserves the win, and he deserves to keep this gap tonight, and yeah, it would be very, very harsh for him to suffer that. Obviously, we've only got 12 runners remaining, so the chance of a safety car is reduced, but not completely eliminated. I do find, JP, that when drivers in a Grand Prix are driving in better and better grip conditions, there are fewer mistakes.
I think it's sort of similar, in my opinion.
Oh, look at that.
Passes with the DRS, but the question is, can he keep it? Because Nick Jewston's going to have DRS back down to Cedar de Lago. They go through Curva de Sol, and Ghost, it just looks like Ghost has much better grip, or at least straight line speed as well. And Nick Jewston isn't actually really closing in on the McLaren, so I've got a feeling Ghost running a slightly drier setup compared to Nick Jewston. Lower wings, and
yep. I mean, he typically runs very low wings anyway. Certainly did last season. We were talking about that all season, that nobody could pass him after a long straight, because his wings were typically so much lower than everybody else's. Now, this season, it's been a bit of a different story in that most everybody who's been beating him have been in exactly the same boat. But for some reason tonight, whether Nick just thinks, forget it, I don't care, I want the championship, and he's doing enough, right? He's still very much on target to win this championship tonight. Luke Bailey's dropping down.
Luke Bailey, in the second part of fair draw, has gone round, but he's still going, so no safety car there. This makes things interesting because Ghost also has fastest lap. So currently Ghost would be on 124 points, Nick Jewston 139, meaning a 15-point gap and a definite mathematical chance for Ghost to win this title still, albeit in realistic terms unlikely at Algarve, but still there.
we could go down to a championship finale then. If things finish as they are, with Ghost getting that fastest lap and 4th place versus Nick Justin's 5th. There's plenty of racing still to run though. McLaren looking good for the constructors at the moment to gain some points with 4th and 8th places respectively. They're up against Alpha Tauri and Alfa Romeo. Here comes Speed Queen on Reshka. Two old hands here at Invictus going at it, and Reshka hanging on at the moment. Generally speaking, you'd probably favour Speed Queen in an equal fair fight across these two, and they're on similar tyres right now. ARL is in need of an invite. I don't know if you can help him at all, JP. Obviously I can't do it while we're on stream, but it's lap 26 of 36, and we've got Jeremy Clarkson in the lead by 10.2 seconds from Merckx. Tyre difference there, but Clarkson doing enough at the moment to hold off Merckx advances. Cameron Searle 6.9 seconds behind them, and then Ghost in 4th, Nick Justin in 5th. Looking like we might go to a final race showdown for the title. Speed Queen is in 8th here, about to launch an attack on Reshka without the use of ERS. She's just got DRS available to her and does the job in Curve 1, and a nice move completed from Reshka just to stitch that race together. Ricky Maru is in 6th, a fair distance ahead of Speed Queen, but Reshka comes back round the outside down the Reta Raposta and round the outside of Desida del Lago, and these two making sure we're keeping an eye on them, and they're giving us plenty of entertainment value.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be with you in just a second. Just trying to get an invite.
Yeah, that's great. Ryan was looking a little bit leery, but after these two have had a couple of battles, he's managed to catch them once again. But unfortunately for them, Ricky Maru's getting further and further away into the distance. So this is not helping whoever succeeds out of this battle to actually seal an extra couple of points. But they will go again as Speed Queen will get the opportunity here. She's got a tighter line coming through. Subida dos Box, the final major corner here after Yun Sao. She draws fully alongside Reshka. She will try and do the job. Oh, how about Ryan getting a double overtake here? That'll put Speed Queen offline as they go through the Esto Senna and into Curva do Sol. That means that Reshka might get these two once again with the benefit of DRS. It's advantage Ryan, who goes around the outside of Desida del Lago, and this is like a fairground game of cups and find the ball as the three drivers just swap around, and it's anybody's guess for who's going to victor out of this.
Yeah, this is a nice close battle. Obviously, Ryan on the hard compound tyres, so yeah, there is a slight delta difference between the two, but critically, Reshka now down to 9th place. About 4 laps ago, lap 24, the way the constructors stood was Alpha Tauri and McLaren on 152, Alfa Romeo 146.
Very, very intriguing. That one's really going to go down to the wire, but it's dropped a couple thanks to Reshka losing out in this battle at the moment. Speed Queen then will go again and have the DRS profit on the car in front. She has the opportunity to draw alongside, but she's once bitten, well, maybe thrice bitten, 4 times shy, as she doesn't go for the move this time into Curva 1. She's going to try and do the job on the way into Desida del Lago. She moves to the inside. That looked to be the tiniest bit of lag spike there for a second. She gets underneath the Mercedes. They'll run side by side, but she'll have the better run into the next corner, into Ferradura. So she's back ahead into 7th place with Ryan, and then Reshka 7th, 8th and 9th behind her. But Speed Queen is having an absolute cracker of a race battle here and giving us plenty to watch and enjoy. Ghost, though, as not only has he gapped Nick Justin, he's actually on the tail of this podium, JP, and we could be on for another Ghost podium this season.
Yeah, and this would certainly help the constructors just a little bit. I mean, this is worth an extra 2 points as well for the driver. So make the still very, in realistic terms, unrealistic chance of winning this title slightly more realistic. But it's fair to say Cameron is not going to give this up easily, knowing that this is for constructors as well. I mean, basically Cameron, Ghost, and Nick, they don't have to worry about Jeremy and Merck at the moment.
Yeah.
They just need to score as many points against each other as they can.
Absolutely. Ghost is at the moment the faster of the three of them, and has been for a few laps. He's ducked out of this battle a little bit in the last half a lap or so. I think that's to make sure he's got plenty of ERS to play with as they go into start lap 31. Jeremy Clarkson leads from Merck down to 8.7 seconds. That gap. Ghost is on the tail of Cameron Serlin. Before I can even say it, he's getting past with the ERS, with the DRS in action as well down the start finish straight, and Ghost back onto the provisional podium here, JP. And if he can gap and get away from Cameron and Nick Jewston, he'll be in a much stronger position for this championship showdown in the Algarve.
Yeah, and you can just see the pace of that McLaren in a straight line. It just doesn't look like anyone's touching it.
Yeah.
At the moment, I mean, this would explain Ghost's lack of pace earlier this race in the wet. If he is running these lower wings, as I'm very much expecting in comparison to others, it would explain the lack of pace earlier on, because he was just trying to make sure the car stayed in one direction. But Cameron Sorrell isn't letting him go, is he? He's still right on the tail of him.
Absolutely, and Brian is right on the tail of Speed Queen as well. I switched focus to them for a moment, but perhaps prematurely between Cameron and Ghost. I felt, instinctually I felt like Ghost isn't going to get caught with that top speed. Here comes Ryan down the inside. That was half a move. It was a slightly underconfident move, and he didn't get the overlap properly. Oh, big slide, and he picks up another penalty. So his penalties are really adding up now. That's 6 seconds for him. He's going to be exiting out of this battle, and it comes to a point where you're costing yourself too much trying to stay with the cars and picking up those penalties, and you're just doing yourself no favours whatsoever. Here is then Ghost then into third place, just inching through and away from the danger of Cameron Searle trying to challenge him. Let's go down and see what Ryan is doing with Speed Queen as he goes alongside, tries to go around the outside. Speed Queen typically very wise in her defensive moves when it matters, when she knows she's in a race with somebody. She's very, very savvy. Doesn't quite claim the fully left-hand side of the track into Delicida del Lago, and Ryan goes through. So it's Ryan into 7th, Speed Queen 8th, and Reshka 9th in this constant swap around.
Yeah, that's a great battle that for 7th place, and Reshka just seems to be biding his time a little bit, almost waiting for those errors to come, because if he can sneak another couple of places, that'll help his team. Cameron's still within DRS of Ghost, but it just doesn't look like there's any trouble of him busting any sort of move. But as of lap 30, McLaren would lead the constructors on 154, because Ghost does have that fastest lap. Alpha Tauri would be 4 points behind on 150. Alfa Romeo on 146, so a further 4 behind that.
Yeah, and Ghost only has that by just over a tenth of a second, just under a tenth of a second, that fastest lap. I don't know that the cars are going to go any quicker on old mediums or older hards at the end of the race. They will be lighter, of course, JP. I don't know, how do you call that one?
I think the wear, it would be too much at this point in the race. I mean, the 13-lap old mediums, even 13-lap old hards, you're not going to go any quicker at this stage of the race. And we've got a yellow flag. That is for Luke Bailey, who's lost the front wing, and safety car.
Oh no!
We have a late safety car.
That is heartbreaking. That must be debris. That must be the front wing debris on the racing line or near it from Luke Bailey. Pits. That is massive.
In the pits.
They've pitted. They've pitted for softs. I'm imagining here. What is Nick Jewston? Interesting move from Nick Jewston, and he was fully locked up going across the line as well.
And this is the thing, is that they're going to go onto soft tyres, but the problem is, because Jeremy Clarkson passed the safety car before it came out the pits, they're not going to really get too much of an advantage. Jeremy and Merck will be able to get on some soft tyres and then resume in this order. So I think it was a good idea, but the problem is Jeremy was already past the safety car.
Yes, okay, so Jeremy will have the opportunity to react, and he just needs to hope that Merck doesn't stay out, I suppose. Have we got more pit stops? Yeah, lots and lots of pit stops happening right now. So that is everybody in. Go ahead.
Tell you what this does mean, though, is that fastest lap is up for grabs, isn't it now?
Absolutely is. Absolutely is. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
The question is, how many laps are we going to have with the safety car?
Merckx has come in 2. That's everybody in. No, we can't. We have to have 2, don't we, to finish the race?
No, we've just gone to lap 34. I mean, we might have a 1-lap shootout for the end of this race.
Oh man, that would be absolutely awful for Jeremy Clarkson. At least he is on a fair fight with everybody. He's had an awful lot. Yeah, that's true. He had the fewer opportunities to be passed, but at least he's had the opportunity to pit. That is absolutely on it. It's lap 34. It's Clarkson, Merckx and Ghost. Cameron Searle, Ghost the only PlayStation runner in the top 4. Nick Jewston in 5th. Ricky Maru, Ryan, Speed Queen, Reshka. That 7th, 8th, 9th battle that has rolled and rolled throughout this race, and it's Clarkson who has the opportunity here to decide when to go. We'll keep an eye on that safety car. I don't think it will come in at the end of this lap, JP. It looks like the field is too far spread. It usually likes to collect all the drivers behind first.
It wouldn't be the first time that I've seen the safety car come in a lot earlier than most people think, though. So
yeah,
it's going to be up to the game here. To some degree, I kind of hope we have one more lap of safety car with 1-lap shootout here, just to get people caught up. But it depends what the in-game race.
The game logic often doesn't see the safety car out in the final lap, and indeed there it goes. The lights have gone out. Jeremy Clarkson's worst nightmare 3 laps ago would have been a safety car coming in. Thankfully he's got soft tyres on. He has good underlying pace, but there is a little bit of a roll of the dice now. He will wait to decide when to go. I figure he'll probably wait until pretty close to the line to eliminate the chance of a slipstream. We've got cars stacking left and right of each other. That is frowned upon in the rules. You should be in single file pretty much.
Oh, and Ricky Maru almost went into the back of Nick Jewston there because he was flying up.
And there goes Jeremy Clarkson, goes for it, and Merckx is under danger here from the very quick Ghost, who goes down the inside. Ghost going for 2nd place, and there he goes, completes it. Ghost into 2nd. This is his best chance of a win this season so far. He sees it on the cards for him. He sees it in front of him. He sees Nick Jewston is not as quick as he has been, and Ghost could claim this one at the end. It's lap 35 of 36, and we're on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, and remember, there will be no DRS for the rest of this race. 2 laps, absolutely. It's all about the driving, all about the car. If you're going to make a move, it's got to be up to you and your skill. And Ghost definitely, he has to try and take this chance with both hands, but we know how quick Jeremy's been all evening. It's going to be a tough order.
Speed Queen gets Ryan. Speed Queen launches one and secures the move against Ryan, but I'm going to keep us watching this battle for the podium. Cameron Searle versus Nick Jewston for 4th position, but Merckx has been mugged going into that first corner after the restart. Jeremy Clarkson managed to start it and clear the gap. Ghost has a small ERS advantage, as he usually does, just keeping it savvy, and the drivers didn't have the opportunity to make a great deal of harvesting going on in that safety car as they normally would, and it's the final lap of the race. Ghost 0.6 of a second, 0.7 of a second, tries to get the slipstream going towards Desida del Lago. He won't do anything silly. He is the reigning champion after all, but you can bet your bottom dollar he will go for the winners. Ryan has crashed out and retired. Ryan exits the race. We have 10 runners remaining. Well, I have to keep my eye on what's going on the podium, but unfortunately we've lost Ryan from that epic battle between himself and Speed Queen that ran all race long. Jeremy Clarkson, the deserved winner tonight from anybody's stretch of the imagination, but Nick Jewston down in 5th. Who had that before tonight's race as a prediction? Going through the final 2 major corners on the track, Jeremy Clarkson is just about far enough in front. Ghost will press that ERS deployment button, but Jeremy Clarkson through Sabidados box. He's got a 3/4 of a second lead. It was 17 seconds at one point, but he wins the race by hook or by crook. Jeremy Clarkson does it. Ghost secures was second, finishes ahead of his championship rivals on this penultimate race of the season. Merckx is in third, Cameron Searle is in fourth, Nick Jewston an unusual fifth, and Ricky Maru brings the car home for Haas in sixth place. And I think Gunter will be happy on with that after a very poor qualifying. Speed Queen in seventh, Reschke in eighth, ARL crosses the line in ninth, and Martin will bring that Williams home for a 10th position. Wow, JP, what a finish.
It is a hell of a finish, and exactly what Ghost needs right now, a second place. He's beaten Nick Jewston now, finally in this season.
Yeah.
And he also took fastest lap as well, so it all adds up. I'll kind of go through that very shortly after we run through the results.
That'd be great.
But I mean, Jeremy Clarkson, I'm really happy the fact he kept a hold of that, because he fully deserved that after taking the biggest gamble of everyone at the start of this race, and then again with the hard tyres, he took those gambles, and I'm very happy that he did hold on to that.
Absolutely, very, very happy indeed. I think any neutral will have a great deal of respect for that run by Clarkson today in the Aston Martin. That was a tremendous handled race and qualifying. A good gamble at the start of the race. He had pace. He had the same pace as the wet runners in torrential rain on the intermediates. His timing to dry tyres was perfect, and then just that spanner at the end of the safety car couldn't destroy what he had built throughout the entire race. Well, for Jamaica, for Aston Martin, Jeremy Clarkson, JP, wins the race, but Ghost gets that point for fastest lap.
Yeah, so well done, Jeremy Clarkson, winner of this race by just under half a second. Ghost, who picks up second, and a fastest lap, and a good fact, fastest lap is a second quicker than last season's fastest lap in the race.
Very good.
That was his own anyway. Merckx third, Cameron Searle fourth, Nick Jewston fifth, Ricky Maru sixth, Speed Queen seventh, Reschke in eighth, SFR Martin ninth, ARL will come home 10th. Ryan, Luke Bailey, Ennis and MDJ all unfortunately retiring from the race.
Absolutely. Well, while JP does wonders with Excel and manages to get us a points update. Provisional, of course, prior to any stewards' inquiries. We didn't see a lot of steward inquiry-worthy issues through the race, but you never know. So let's just call it as we see it here. Jeremy Clarkson's dropping the gifts in the driver chat. I think he's pretty pleased with that night's work. So stay with us to hear the latest estimated championship positions and, of course, driver interviews. If you have a question for our drivers, drop it in the chat, and if it's clean enough and sensible enough, we'll ask it and try and get a clue from them. Our drivers will be making their way through towards the post-race conference. I don't know if we've spoken to Clarkson before, but we know that Ghost knows his way. Okay.
Yeah, Clarkson and Merckx we haven't, so I'll see if I can get something in the drivers chat.
Thank you.
Before we go off air. But in terms of what we believe the points are going to be, Ghost, with that second and fastest lap, puts him on 128 points. Nick Jewston, 139.
11 points off the lead. Wow.
So 11-point gap in the drivers.
Yeah.
In the constructors, McLaren, a good day at the office for them. 157 points they will be on leaving here. 150 for AlphaTauri and 146 for Alfa Romeo. It's still everything to play for, but McLaren do have that advantage going into the last round in Portugal.
Absolutely. Well, JP tries to contact our drivers either to get them in for a live conference or to get a comment from them if possible. We know that Ghost is here. Ghost, that second place at the end, that has got to bring a very big smile on your face, surely.
Oh yeah, my straight line speed was absolutely insane.
Yes.
When it came to the dry, so I think I was the only one who went with a basically dry setup. It wasn't quite. I put the wings up a tad, but
yeah,
it was essentially a dry setup. So, and it worked out in the end, which I'm very happy about. I just did my best to stay on track in the wet conditions, and then just as soon as it started to get dry, and when it got dry earlier than expected, I was thinking I might have a chance,
Yeah.
And then when I saw how much I was catching Niek on the straights, I thought, okay, we're in here. So yeah, I mean the focus was P3 because I knew I could catch Cameron, and then the safety car came out for God knows what reason.
It was a lost
And
front wing at turn one with one of the rear runners. Unfortunately, I think it was a Williams that lost its front wing. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, and then got marked into turn one down the inside, and he didn't make it particularly difficult, which I thank him for. But yeah, and to be honest, I thought when the safety car came out that I might win the race.
Yeah.
But to be honest, Jeremy deserved it with that call at the start. He 100% deserved the race win. I think it would have been a grave injustice if I'd won that race. So, yeah, I'm
Well,
very happy.
yeah, I saw the opportunity for a really good finish and a win for you, and I was getting excited. But absolutely, any neutral in the crowd, and it looks like some of the drivers as well have to doff their cap at Clarkson's run through the race, because it was a brave call, yes. But for a good third of the race, he was hanging with the pace of the wet runners. How tricky was it at the start with that wet running? And did it feel like the race got easier and easier in terms of grip levels, or was it a bit more up and down?
Um, yeah, I mean, it was odd as it changed to the sort of inter crossover
Yeah.
because it felt very difficult at the start. I feel like I was faster than Speed Queen, but she kept it together well. But and then she stayed out on the wets trying to do a Saints or whoever did that in Monaco a couple years ago or last year, whatever it was. And yeah, so I just kept the car together. It was difficult through some corners. I could definitely tell that I was quite early on that I was one of the only ones running a sort of still fairly dry setup.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just keeping the car on the track. I nearly binned it once or twice, but kept it on the track. And yeah, just it was about surviving, and I knew that, and I kept it together. And yeah, I'm very happy with that drive.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Really, really well driven. JP, any questions for Ghost before we hear from the rest of our podium?
Yeah, so congratulations, Ghost. You finally beat Nick on track, which is something that I'm sure you've wanted to see for quite some time. But obviously, as you say, most of the drivers, including yourself, having some form of twitch or slide in the wet. How difficult is it when you have that sort of slide to keep the trust in the car, to keep trying to not necessarily push it to the limit, but keep going at a good enough rate to not lose time? Because you can lose the confidence of the car and thus lose a bit of pace, especially in those wet conditions.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, it was all about whenever I felt the car going, the priority was not don't lose too much time because I was losing time anyway. The priority was stay on the track. Um, so it was, yeah, it's tricky. Like when the car starts going, you just sort of, your heart leaps up. And you just have to react quickly with these cars because I think. I think that's what a lot of people have struggled with these cars. It's catching the car when it starts to go. Either they lose too much time doing it, or they can't react fast enough. So yeah, it's a certainly heart in your mouth moment when you feel it going. But yeah, it was fairly okay for me. I didn't ever feel like I was going to bin it into the wall. So yeah, I was still feeling fairly comfortable, and I was just keeping it on.
Yeah, and just going to have a quick question about championships. Obviously, I already know what you're going to say about the driver's start. I mean, it's only 11 points, but we already know you know that's going to be a very tall order. So we'll go to the constructors instead. You're seven, as far as my calculations are concerned, you're 7 points clear of AlphaTauri going into Portugal. That's quite whilst it's not a massive amount of a gap in terms of a team championship, it's still quite a nice gap for you and Reshka to work with heading into the final round.
Yeah, it's an absolutely massive result. I mean, Russia coming eighth as well. He had a really good race. Is he did his best to keep the two cars behind him behind, but then obviously the safety car coming out, and then he couldn't quite keep them behind. But he was brilliant today. So the very important 3 points from him, and obviously, yeah, the constructors has been on our mind because obviously, you know as well as I do, the only way I'm winning the drivers is if Nick crashes next week. So the constructors is priority, and getting a result like that is absolutely huge. So 7 point gap, we feel like we can defend that as long as nothing goes horribly wrong in Portimao, or something like if Nipro comes back for Alfa Romeo in the last week, then we might start to have issues. But yeah, we're ecstatic about that race. And then yeah, drivers. I mean, I'm just a little disappointed I couldn't. My straight line speed was such that I couldn't really have a wheel to wheel with Nick and sort of show him a bit of the curb like he did to me in Italy. But,
Not that
no,
drivers have got long memories or anything. No.
no, not at all. But yeah, it's fantastic for us and the constructors, and yeah, we're really hoping we can hold it together and defend that title.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Ghost, for giving us the entertainment, having a very strong second half of that race as well. Thanks to JP, thanks to everyone watching, and AJ ARL has just said he's pleased with the point because he couldn't have messed that strategy up anymore. Any further comments, JP, from the?
Yeah, I was going to say we did get comments from
Buxton
and Mert. So we'll start with Mert, obviously third overall, so congratulations to him. He said quality was good, pace felt very strong in the race, but obviously Jeremy had the better strategy, and that was the main difference tonight, was that call on the inters. So he congratulates Jeremy and Ghost on the podium. Jeremy Clarkson, obviously the first thing, went for a massive risk on the strategy for the inters. It only dropped 3-4 seconds by the time it's had that change over between the wets and hards, and then he just had to hang on for dear life on the hards, which were apparently overheating quite a lot. So I'm guessing he must have had quite high sort of tyre pressures, maybe for the wet tyres, or very low tyre pressures, one or the other, to overheat them.
Fantastic. Thanks for getting that for us. Well, we have one more race to go with both championships on the line. Whether you believe Ghost or not, they are technically on the line for next one. Ghost has only an 11-point gap to Nick Justin's lead in the championship, and a 7-point gap in front of the field for the constructors. This is Invictus Tier 1. Realistic Performance follows tomorrow night at the same time, and catch up on the rest of the week's action, of course, on the YouTube channel. And from us, Webbo, and from JP, and from everyone at Invictus Tier 1, thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next race day.